libraries. And the exciting thing about the results that you're going to hear today are, this is the first time we've been able to actually kind of put quantitative evidence behind those stories. And you can imagine the power of putting both head and heart into all the advocacy work that we're doing. It's going to be quite powerful. I just wanted to share personally that this day is actually, this event is quite exciting for me. Some of you know I joined the Gates Foundation a little over 4 years ago. And as I began looking and prospecting some of the initial grants that I made, you know, IMLS, the Institute for Museums and Library Services, obviously surfaced to the top of my list. That's a federal agency that is administering LSTA and is really the national voice for public libraries. It has to be a partner of the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation. And so I recall my very first trip. It was December of 2005, my very first trip for the foundation. I arrived very late into Reagan, at that time National, I think it was National Airport at that time. My luggage was lost, so I had no luggage. I went into IMLS the next day, and I thought, well, you know, these folks don't know me. Makeup, no makeup, probably doesn't matter too much. And we sat, I think, for a full morning, if I recall, Mary, you know, talking about ways in which we could support the field. And the place that we landed was, we said, you know, there is no national research on how and who is using public computers and the internet in public libraries. And so, fast forward 4 years from now, to be here with this work, it's just been an incredible journey. I just want to start by just mentioning a couple of the kind of core principles that we try to live by at the Gates Foundation. And it's an important value that I think certainly worth restating for those of you that have heard it. And that is that we believe that every life has equal value, and that each person in this country and in this world deserves the chance to live a healthy, productive life. And in the United States, we think there's no better way to work toward this vision than to partner with public libraries. As you all know, the library's role in providing technology access has exploded since the late 90s. When this program first started, we estimated about 1 in 4 public libraries had an internet connection. And as you know, today, it is a core service of the institution of public libraries. As Sari mentioned, the access that you all are providing matters more to Americans than ever before. With the economic downturn, the trends we're seeing in surges for demand for library services, I know for you all, is overwhelming. People are relying on public libraries to conduct the job searches Sari mentioned, complete online coursework, apply for government services, and in many cases are learning new skills to re-enter the workforce. I was recently in Phoenix at the Burton Barr Central Library and happened to be there it was about 3:30, and I was just kind of informally walking around the library and happened to come upon the teen center and was almost bowled over by a number of teens that were coming into the library. I went into the teen center, and lo and behold, of course, all the computers are being used. I was kind of informally asking some of the students what they were doing. Some were frankly doing gaming and just emailing and having fun, and others were saying, I'm finishing a homework assignment. I'm doing a research for a paper. These are stories that you all know. And so we all have these anecdotes about how people are using, students or seniors, people in between, are using the computers. And yet we never really had this concrete data that truly illustrate, from the patron's perspective, the impact that these services have on their lives. And so now, thanks to this, what I would call a landmark study, we have a report that reaffirms what many of us already know to be true, that library technology services have created opportunity for millions of Americans. I want to express my gratitude to both IMLS for co-funding this research with the Gates Foundation, and to the incredible team at the University of Washington Information School, led by principal investigators Mike Crandall and Karen Fisher for doing this amazing work. We all know that despite the rising demand that libraries are seeing, many public libraries are struggling with their funding. They're struggling to replace those old workstations and increase the speed of their internet connections. And we know the demand for bandwidth at this point is insatiable. Just this past week, I visited the Multnomah Public Central Library with some members of my team, and there we learned that the wait for a library computer, there's always a wait for a library computer about 95% of the hours that the library is open. So again, the demand is insatiable. Nationally, we know that up to a third of all libraries say they lack even minimally adequate bandwidth, and more report that they cannot provide the access their patrons truly need. So this study highlights what is at risk if future public and private investment in public libraries does not keep pace with demand, particularly for the most vulnerable among us, for those low-income individuals and families and communities who rely heavily on the public library for their technology. So thank you to everyone who's here and to everyone who has supported the study. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our co-partner,